Did Fred become a Hogwarts ghost? Was there really a plot hole with the twins and the Marauders map?
That's rubbish!
And how can we be sure it was Fred who died, not George?
He's not Fred, I am.
Let's dive deep into the mysteries of the Weasley twins. So what happened to Fred after his death? Did he stay in Hogwarts as a ghost? He died in the castle, and presumably that's how you get to stay there, right?
I've been thinking exactly the same thing.
While that is yet another spectacular fan theory, it definitely makes a lot of sense. I mean, why not? Dumbledore got a chance to live his afterlife in Hogwarts by becoming a portrait. So why wouldn't Fred get his chance by becoming a ghost? This theory gives me a deep feeling of relief. Just imagine Fred being in Hogwarts right now. I can definitely see him having fun with Peeves and nearly headless Nick, freaking the hell out of all the newbies.
Like this.
In addition to that, Fred can also watch the future Weasley generations growing up. I'm sure he'd have a bunch of good stories to tell the Ginger Peeps. Man, JK should write a brand new book about Fred's adventures as a ghost. Here's another spooky question about the twins. This time it's based on a mind-blowing fan theory which says George losing his ear actually foreshadowed Fred's death. Now, wait a second. How's that even possible? Believe it or not, but Fred and George may have been named after Great Britain's King George III and Prince Frederick. Now, George III became king after Prince Frederick died. And if you think that that's just a coincidence, then how about the next fact? George III was deaf in one ear. Remember how George Weasley lost his ear due to an off-target Sectum Sempra spell?
Reckon I'm still better looking than you.
Now, JK Rowling didn't confirm or deny this wild theory. However, she is known to hide a bunch of cool secrets behind her characters' names. Like, for example, Professor Lupin. His name Remus comes from the Roman character who was raised by wolves. And his surname sounds very close to the Latin word lupus, which means wolf. Rowling also used Arthurian legends as inspiration for many of the Weasleys' names. Like, Arthur obviously represents the legendary king, and Percy represents one of King Arthur's Knights of the Round Table, Percival. So perhaps the theory about Fred and George's names is also true. Since the loss of Fred was so heartbreaking, fans couldn't stop searching for some deep sense behind the legendary twins. Like, did you notice that Fred and George were only injured when they were apart? Talk about being stronger together. Or did you know that the twins were always shown in that order on the screen, left to right? They were—
Fred, you next. He's not Fred, I am. Honestly, woman, you call yourself our mother.
Oh, I'm sorry, George.
They were virtually inseparable. Even on their mother's magical clock, they shared the same hand. Tragically, Fred was killed during the Battle of Hogwarts, but poor George didn't have time to get used to his dreadful loss. And when Harry reveals he is alive, George turns excitedly to where his brother would have been, next to him if he was still alive. Well, now that you know it, this moment will definitely bring tears to your eyes. But enough sadness.
Just trying to diffuse the tension.
Let's lighten things up a bit and move to the next nagging questions fans have. Were Fred and George bullies? There's no doubt that our beloved twins did some bad things to Hogwarts students. They even played horrible pranks on their brothers. Those of you who read the books probably remember that Fred and George were responsible for Ron's arachnophobia.
No, Hagrid.
Can we panic now?
In the Chamber of Secrets, Ron says that he wasn't afraid of spiders when he was younger, until he became a victim of an evil joke played by Fred and George. Once they got mad at Ron and transfigured his teddy bear into a giant spider. Well, that can set up some deep trauma. The twins also teased Percy and Ginny, and don't forget they cut classes in the most shameless way possible. So, yep, I guess we can call Fred and George bullies, but let's agree that they were sort of kind ones?
You said! Oh, right, you want a piece of me, make me laugh. You want this?
Because most of their pranks were about fun, not beating up or humiliating people. And by the way, for some reason, the twins never abused Harry.
Never!
Which is also a fun question to discuss. Like, why were they so kind to him? Seriously, they treated him better than they treated Ron. Heck, they even gave Harry one of their most valuable treasures.
What's this rubbish?
What's this rubbish, she says. That there is the secret to our success.
Yep, we're talking about the Marauders map. Now you probably know that there were tons of discussions about this moment. Fans speculated that Fred and George were involved in one of the biggest Harry Potter plot holes ever. In The Prisoner of Azkaban, Fred and George present Harry with the Marauders map, which showed every person in Hogwarts. At the end of the movie, we find out that Ron's rat Scabbers was actually Peter Pettigrew, which doesn't make sense since Fred and George would have noticed if their 13-year-old brother was sleeping with some man every night. Fans all over the world were 100% positive this was a plot hole that JK Rowling missed. But was it? Thanks to YouTube blogger Seamus Gorman, we now have a beautiful answer to the biggest Fred and George controversy ever. The thing is, the twins couldn't see Peter Pettigrew, and that's because he was one of the map's creators. Yes, imagine somebody found the map. Then he or she could use it against the Marauders. They wouldn't want that, obviously. So they designed the map in such a way that no one could see the Marauders on it except for themselves. Pretty smart, right? And if you need proof, then try rereading The Prisoner of Azkaban. You'll see that it was Remus Lupin who saw Pettigrew on the map, because Professor Lupin was a Marauder too.
The people who have only seen the films are claiming that Harry does see Peter Pettigrew on the map. Yeah, if you've only seen the films, this is one of those cases where the story in the book is completely different to the film.
The bigger question is why Fred and George gave Harry the map. Like, they were the biggest pranksters at Hogwarts. They would definitely need such a priceless artifact. But I guess life wasn't only about having fun for the twins.
It's a wrench giving it to you, believe me. But we've decided your needs are greater than ours. George, if you will.
During Harry's first 2 years of studying, Fred and George saw him, Ron and Hermione succeed against the Dark Lord. Yes, first Harry beat up Professor Quirrell, and then a year later he killed a giant snake and saved their sister. That can only mean one thing. Harry needed the Marauders map more.
So, Peters, our job is to make sure that you don't get bloodied up too bad.
Because even with the map, Fred and George couldn't tell that Professor Quirrell was actually carrying around Tom Riddle all that time. Well, at least the twins punched the Dark Lord in the face. Wait, did you miss that? The incident happened in the first book when, during winter, they landed a snowball right in the back of the dark arts teacher's head, which was actually Lord Voldemort's face. It's a pity they didn't include that scene in the movie. There are many crazy theories regarding Fred and George, so let's end this video with one of the coolest ones. It's about Fred's death scene. Was it really Fred who died? I mean, people constantly got them confused, and the twins were always about having fun. So what if it was actually George who died while Fred took his name to honor him? Wouldn't that be a touching twist? This also means that George is the ghost in Hogwarts now, not Fred. What do you think about that? If you love Harry Potter as much as we do, check out these videos too. Thanks for watching and stay awesome, guys!